Good afternoon and welcome. It is still Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024. This is our second afternoon work session. For this work session, we'll be focusing on a quarterly update regarding our Climate Smart Future Ready initiative. And I'm John Kafalas, Commissioner from District 1, joined by Kristen Stevens from District 2, Jody Sheddock McNally from District 3, and we have our County Manager, Lorenda Volker. Did you want to say anything, Lorenda?
I think this is exciting. This is the first report after we've left the planning stage and gone into implementation of Climate Smart and Future Ready. And I know Heidi's met with the executive team and is eager to provide an update to you all.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome, Heidi. Welcome, Abby.
Good afternoon. Heidi Pruis, Climate and Sustainability Manager.
Could you try to talk into the mic, folks?
There. How's that? Is that a little bit better?
Bit better, yeah.
Okay. Heidi Pruis, Climate and Sustainability Manager for the county. Thank you so much for your attention today as we provide this very first of our quarterly updates to you on progress towards Climate Smart Future Ready. The one thing I will mention prior to starting this is that we did just launch the plan in March. And so this has not been a full quarter for which we have this data available for you today. So as you listen to the wonderful feedback that's been provided by our champions, please keep in mind we're just getting started and we're just skirting the beginnings of getting underway. Just as a reminder for you, we do have 4 focus areas within the Climate Smart Future Ready initiative. One focus area around the built environment, which is largely energy and energy use in the built environment. Circular economy, which it comprises our waste services. And business and jobs is one focus area. The second focus area is mobility. How is it that we get around? How is it that not only we get around, but our goods and services as well? The third focus area is the natural environment, water, and agriculture, and this focus area also includes disaster preparedness and adaptation and resilience. These 3 focus areas are brought together by our 4th and final focus area, this interconnection between focus areas, which we're calling unifying solutions. And so we'll talk a little bit about that today. We did finalize the plan development in March of this year, and that plan includes 17 strategies and has 19 action teams engaged. As you can see there in that second bullet, I do have a middle line that highlights that we have 21 champions for 24 actions. And you might ask, wait a minute, those numbers don't add up. How does that work? It is true that there are often multiple actions underneath a strategy, and there are also sometimes multiple champions for one action because there are co-champions who are sharing some of the responsibility. You just heard a work session that included our economic workforce development. Those business and job strategies that are in Climate Smart Future Ready are co-championed by the county and the city of Fort Collins. So we do have a number of action teams underway, and you may recall that we had a number of tactics underneath those actions. So the numbers represent the level of effort, basically. In addition to having finalized the plan and having the structure underway, we also do have a social media campaign that is underway to alert the community that this plan has been completed and what is contained in that plan, in the hopes that they will reach out, get engaged, and join us. I'm going to give you a couple slides now with regard to some reporting metrics. This is kind of the metadata, as one of our executive team members highlighted. And so we'll go through some of the general numbers. And as we do this, I would be interested in your feedback on, are these the kind of metrics that might be interesting to you, valuable to you? Are there metrics that I'm not going to share today that maybe you would like me to share in the future? So as we go through these, kind of keep that in mind, that that's one of my questions. So we have held a number of meetings, a variety of different kinds of meetings, action team meetings, community stakeholder meetings, and meetings with members of our disproportionately impacted community members. I'll talk a little bit about those as we go through our successes. We also are working on those number of tactics. The plan itself has 125 tactics, and one of the first things that the action teams have been doing is prioritizing those tactics for which tactics are very critical for year one, which ones would follow year one into year 2 or 3. This being a 5-year plan, recognizing that we aren't going to tackle all 125 tactics in the first year. This 41 tactics is more than I expected, to be honest, that would be addressed in our first year. So our action teams are ready to go. Because we have launched our dashboard with sometimes some incomplete information because we're still collecting data, or just by virtue of the fact that our action teams have been working, we do already, within just this couple of months, not a full quarter, have dashboard updates. At the end of this presentation, if you'd like to go to the dashboard, we can do that, and I can show you some of the updates that were provided. But those updates will also be highlighted in our newsletters that will come out every other month. Finally, on this slide, we do have grants that have been applied for or secured. Some of these grants were accomplished before we finalized the plan because our working groups knew that the actions were coming and wanted to apply for them. But just since March, when we finalized the plan, we have secured yet another grant in our land use planning segment with Rebecca Everett leading the charge, our community development director, and she's secured a $225,000 grant from the Department of Local Affairs to conduct some of the work that's aligned with this action. Another page of some metrics includes our social media updates. And sometimes it's hard to capture the outreach that you have for a plan like this in the community. So I'll share with you, we have some social media updates there, both in English and Spanish. And these numbers reflect who has visited those particular social media outlets to view the products that we're putting out. I have behind the Twitter X and the Facebook numbers there that was just for one post in May, and we've had several posts in May. So it's a little bit hard to relay this information, but I hope you get a sense of how many people are looking at these posts. And of course, we have the website views there at the bottom of the slide.
Yes, Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
Thanks. Heidi, not to interrupt you, but would you mind sharing that story from the Land Stewardship Advisory Board where you presented and I had to call in remotely, and one of the gentlemen who was very active on one of the stakeholder groups talked about how outstanding this plan was on the website and the dashboard, and that Montrose County, or those in Montrose or that county were following and copying, and just I thought it was really a great compliment, and knowing that what they're talking about, the work that we're doing, is how it's just like no other they see. So would you mind sharing that? And do you remember what he said? And
Sure.
I thought it was a really amazing comment.
Right. So for those of you who weren't in that particular meeting, it was the Land Stewardship Advisory Board, some of which these advisory board members had been participating in both the development of the plan and are now engaged in some of the action teams, are very engaged in not just what's happening in Larimer County, but how do we compare with what's the activities that are happening statewide or with maybe some of our sister agencies. And this compliment came about just recognizing that there are some resources that we're putting out that are unusual when it comes to seeking out what do climate and sustainability plans look like, both within our state and nationwide. And when they share our dashboard and they share our videos and all of the materials that we're putting out in our newsletters. The comment from one of those work group team members was just that this was unusual and really appreciated the level of effort that was put in.
And it sounds like other people are copying us. They're stealing off the dashboard, it sounds like, so.
I don't have any proof of that, but that would be nice.
That would be cool.
My next slide of metrics is a little bit more qualitative than quantitative, in that I did request for each of the champions of our action teams to provide a quarterly update. Within that, they were able to write in, how are they feeling? Are we having some successes? What are the challenges? And so you can see some of those here on this slide, noting that we have just begun, so don't get too excited asking us for a report already. But that there are some action teams, as I mentioned previously, that have been underway with their actions while we were developing the plan because they knew it was coming. And so our soil health and our land conservation teams have had the majority of those community outreach meetings that I highlighted on the first screen, and they've been very engaged. There is activity happening across our focus areas, which is what the intent of the Unifying Solutions focus area has been. So I was very pleased in the quarterly report form that there was indication that there was cross-pollination of discussion, of actions, of what is it that we're going to measure, maybe how do we work together within these action teams. And so you can see there that there's four of our action teams are indicating that they're cross-pollinating and working across teams. Of course, the challenges of time, staff changes, and scope of work development as we apply for grants. It's a slow process. These are going to be ongoing challenges, I expect. And so we're recognizing that it's not going to be all easy work, and there's not always going to be successes. But here's a slide of successes for you. We have received that grant, and we had, as you well know, a very long legislative session and had several pieces of legislation successfully passed that support the initiatives within Climate Smart Future Ready, which are updated now on the dashboard. So you can see that information there.
How will, if I may, Heidi, the one bill that I keep looking at, but I haven't read it, pertaining to circular economy that passed, what does it do, and is it going to help our efforts? Do you know that bill? If not, we can let it go.
Are you talking about Session Bill 180?
I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what the bill number is, but it was one that used the language circular economy, and I don't recall if it was a Senate or a House bill, but it was passed, and I think the governor recently signed it, and I'm curious what it does. And
I'm sorry, I don't have the specifics on that. I can
Okay.
certainly get back to you on that. There were 18 pieces of legislation that directly supported what was in Climate Smart Future Ready, so I'm sure that that's one that we can bring back to you and highlight the details for you.
Okay, thanks.
You can see successes there. With regard to the circular economy, our solid waste team is indicating that their pilot program for mattress and box spring recycling will have over 10,000 participants in that. And with regard to our mobility focus area, this team is the one that held that one disproportionately impacted community meeting and focusing specifically on wheelchair accessibility. So the North Front Range MPO is the champion for that particular action and facilitated that discussion. You can see the other successes there with regard to the natural environment focus area and our agriculture and food action teams. In addition to those metrics, we will eventually have metrics that are linked to this inventory for our greenhouse gas emissions that has been presented to you in the past. I wanted to take just a moment in a couple of slides here to provide a link for you between the actions within Climate Smart Future Ready and the greenhouse gas inventory. Before I get there, I wanted to just draw your attention to the graphic, which indicates building energy and transportation are those two sectors that will afford the greatest impact with regard to our inventory, and that our executive team, which Lorinda mentioned, which is comprised of Larimer County leadership, our municipalities and their leadership, and our partners at Colorado State University. This executive team took recommendations from our working groups to set this greenhouse gas goal. And this greenhouse gas goal to exceed 45% reduction and aim for 60% reduction by 2030 is based on the slides that I'm going to show to you next. This graphic is a very busy graphic, so I'm going to take just a moment to explain it if I can. We are starting across the bottom of this graphic with the year 2022. That is the baseline year for our greenhouse gas inventory, and we're moving forward to the year 2050. The measures that go into creating this graphic are taking into account the actions within Climate Smart Future Ready and indicating both a 2030 baseline, a first year measurement for accomplishment of the actions, as well as a 2050 then endpoint. The heavy dotted line in the top of the graph there is our BAU, or business as usual, emissions inventory. You can see that the graph itself takes quite a steep dip to the year 2030 and then seems to level out. This business as usual line on the top is indicative of the reductions that the utility companies, our power utility companies, have pledged in their own greenhouse gas emission inventory reductions. As you recall from the previous slide, building energy use is our largest contributor to greenhouse gases, and therefore the reductions that those utility companies will be taking according to their own plans will help us to reach that 2030 goal. And so that's why you see it consistent across all the levels of this graph. If business as usual takes place and we do not implement any of the actions within Climate Smart, the graph then not only levels out, but it does increase ever so slightly at the end, and that is because of an increase of population within our area and the increased use of our resources. You'll see then that there is a black dotted line near the bottom. This black dotted line is the state greenhouse gas goal, a reduction goal. They have a 2030 goal of a 50% reduction. And so that's a little bit more than the 45% reduction goal that we had in our plan. And that's because the colored wedges within this graphic indicate to you the reductions that we may accomplish if we implement the actions within Climate Smart Future Ready. There's a lot on this graph. I don't want to dwell too long on it, and I can come back to it if there's more questions going forward. But what I want to highlight are, in particular, the colored wedges. And here's a little bit more detail in this chart. The chart itself is color-coded the exact same way that that graphic was, but it articulates better the details of the actions within each one of those focus areas. So you can see that should we fully implement the actions of adopting the latest energy codes, building energy codes, electrifying our buildings, our new buildings, promoting energy efficiency in our existing buildings, that by 2030 and 2050, you can see the percent reduction that is estimated if we fully implement the actions within our plan. Similarly, with regard to on-road transportation, encouraging that transition to electric vehicles and improving this active transportation, which are things like improving our trail systems or our biking systems. Waste management and waste diversion are also included in this analysis, as well as this advancing renewable energy on individual homes and grid resilience overall within our system. At the very bottom of this chart, you'll see that baseline, that business as usual reductions. And so our 45% greenhouse gas reduction model is a little bit aggressive, not too aggressive, but a little bit aggressive, and gives us a little opportunity to highlight the other actions that are not included in this modeling that are occurring throughout the plan. As we move forward and we link together the specific actions in the plan to those greenhouse gas reduction metrics, as well as the other metrics that I provided to you earlier, our champions will be meeting on a quarterly basis, updating our executive team on a quarterly basis, and then we'll be coming back to you on a quarterly basis with more tangible metric results that link these things together as the outcomes are realized. While we wait for those metrics and the actions to be implemented, we will have every other month newsletter update with highlights of the work that the champions and their action teams are undergoing, and of course, continuing to update our social media campaign. The next couple slides are then taking this Climate Smart Future Ready plan and just reminding you that this plan also does link to our strategic plan. Within Goal 3, Objective 2 of the county's strategic plan, we do have a category called Develop a Sustainable Built Environment. On the left-hand side of this chart, you'll see the 5 objectives, 2 on this page and 3 on the next, that are indicating what the strategic plan objective area is. For instance, 2A is this regional coordination on air and water quality projects. That aligns with the work that is happening in that unifying solution focus area around sharing climate health risks and solutions with the community. So I wanted to provide this to you to highlight that unifying solution focus area, built environment, and mobility focus areas. And then here on the next slide, the natural environment, circular economy focus areas are all contributing to not only the strategic plan, but to the outcomes of Climate Smart Future Ready. There is one goal that's highlighted here at the very top of the screen. This Objective 2C in the county strategic plan, Goal 3, to develop regional electric equipment rebate program. You may recall that Abby Stapleton, who is here in the audience with me, is the internal champion of iCare, which is our internal climate action, resilience, and education plan. And this particular action is linked to that one of those iCare goals that is being actively worked on by our environmental health team, championed by Chris Manley. These are the linkages between the strategic plan and Climate Smart Future Ready plan. And as we move forward with the outcomes of the action teams that align with each of these, I may be referring to the strategic plan objective as we go along with those updates. So I wanted to provide that linkage to you. This is my final slide. It is just the link to our Climate Smart Future Ready dashboard, to our webpage where you can find more additional information. On this dashboard are included resource links to the work that our champions are doing, the work of our action teams, and the like. So I hope you'll visit that, and I look forward to any questions you might have today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Heidi. Colleagues, questions, feedback? Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
Heidi and Abby, outstanding work. It's great to see such great progress, but man, so much information, my head's spinning.
Yeah.
But it's really exciting. So I might have more questions. But I do have one question today. I think I will have more questions, but I need to sift through them. But I want to, just one question I have after that comment the other night. It sounds like a lot of the folks involved with this work are pretty excited and proud of the work and that it's progressing. What else do you hear from our stakeholders or folks that have been partners or involved that have or from outside the county that have been involved? Are they feeling the same way? Are they being watching and following along? And what are their comments or feedback about the progress or where we're at?
Yeah, I do often, thank you for the question. I do often receive questions about how is it that we gathered these teams together? How is it that we decided the content that was going to go into the plan and the level of effort in this plan? There's a huge desire to not recreate an existing wheel, but to have a different opportunity than maybe what we've had before to collaborate with partners who are working on similar topics. In that vein, there's a lot of interest, not only here in our local community, but as I participate in groups like the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, which is a nationwide network of sustainability directors. This is a common thread about how do we bring together these groups? How do we make progress when we have different missions, when we have different endpoints or different focus area? And so this has kind of set the stage for introducing, this is one way to do it. It seems to be working well for us. Maybe you could try introducing this way. Here locally, I will share that the city of Loveland is starting their climate action plan, and just today issued a press release that they're accepting applicants from the community to sit on their task force. So those applications are due to the city of Loveland by June 3rd. If you're listening, you can take a look at the website and take a look at that press release. But so locally, there's some desire to make this alignment between local plans and what it is that the county has fostered here in collaborative relationships.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens.
Yeah, Heidi. Well, thank you for your work, and my column is about some of the work that we've done on climate action and our Climate Smart Future Ready plan, just to let the public know from a commissioner's perspective on what we're doing and what we've done. It just briefly touches on things because you're limited to 520 words. But so I appreciate you looking at that.
Not as bad as Twitter.
What's that? No, no, that's true. That's true. It's not 160 characters or whatever. But I really love the dashboard. I think that's a great element. I know some of the the tactics and things will cost. Well, there'll be a cost to those. Whether it's we'll have internal costs as we look to create these measures. Is that something that's going to be reflected in the dashboard at all? Kind of what some of the cost to the community might be?
Yes, thank you for that question. I'm just pulling up the dashboard now, and I think there's an option for me to go full screen. This is a preview of our Climate Smart Future Ready dashboard. This is the main landing page, which describes for you how to navigate the dashboard. But if I select one of the categories here, this unifying solutions, which is that focus area that I spoke about, if it'll go. Oh, maybe not. Let me try another one. Maybe I have to be not in full screen. I'm going to try to just refresh this just for a second. If this doesn't work, then I'll move on. Oh, it looks like it might be underway. As I mentioned before, we have quite a few updates that are happening to this dashboard right now as we speak, those 16 updates. And there it goes. So here you will see on the unifying solutions metric, this first strategy around reviewing existing plans and policies. One of our measures here is what are those funding opportunities sought? How much is it that we have already funded within the program towards actions? And some of our other areas, this is, for instance, the legislative piece where we had 28 relevant pieces of legislation, 18 of which were passed through this session. Many of our other tactics within this particular, if I go to circular economy, or business and jobs maybe is the best one, to show the cost. You can see here, we have some that's dollars invested. How much will that take? That are coming soon because we're still working on how is this action going to be implemented and what is the effort going to take. So as those scopes of work that I described in challenges are developed and we seek that funding opportunity, we'll know a little bit better about what the costs are going to be going forward.
Thank you. Well, I love the transparency of the dashboard because I think it's really, it's not just we have a plan, trust us. It's we have a plan, look to see, you can see where we're at with that plan, what we're working on, the dollars that we anticipate coming in for that plan. I really love this. So I thank you. Thank you so much for developing that and really working with our partners kind of on this work. So, I mean, it's interesting to see, our status. So we're 17% ongoing, 83% is not started on this on this particular metric. But it really gives the community an idea of the work that we're not only we're doing, but the people in the community are helping us do. So I appreciate that. And then just want to thank you for that and the all the partnerships that you've developed across the different sectors. I just, thinking about how interconnected this work is with the work that we do and the work that, so many of the people that we know do, it's a heavy lift, but we're not doing it alone. And so, while there are costs associated with this, there's costs associated with not doing this work. And I think that those costs are pretty extreme. So I'm really glad to see what we've done. And I encourage folks to go on and look at some of these metrics and some of our plans for getting this work done. But I just appreciate the work, Abby, too, and for the internal work, because I think it's really also important for us to show the community that we're not just asking you to do this work. We are digging deep and trying to do this work ourselves. So bravo. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. I think I have a couple of questions, and certainly the dashboard is amazing, as was stated, and certainly I think we've approached this different phases, and I think it's been as inclusive or stakeholder-based process as we can, and rather than sort of dumping it on different sectors of our community, trying to get as much buy-in as we can. So I think that's important. Regarding the building and energy category and the percentage of greenhouse gas emissions that are coming from there, do any of the actions or tactics, or there's a lot of terms in there, strategies, actions, tactics, and all the rest, do they include, for example, we're considering putting larger solar arrays on the landfill that will be reclaimed in a couple of years, perhaps on the new landfill site, those kinds of things. Do they include whatever the county's role might be in decentralizing, providing incentives for commercial and residential to put solar or renewable on their, whether it's heat pumps or solar panels, and then even the issue of battery storage. So I don't know what the county's role exactly is in all of that, but I wonder if that's part of our action plan.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question, Commissioner. You're absolutely right that largest wedge, we can't just rely on the approximate 30% reduction that we're going to get automatically from the utilities following through with their greenhouse gas reductions, although that is a huge component. Of course, we need to be sure that our actions are addressing, in particular, residential energy use and commercial energy use. How is it that we can assist our partners in the utility sector, whether it's through the Efficiency Works program that is offered by Platte River Power Authority, or whether it's through the Partners in Energy program through Excel that is specifically looking at how is it that they are contributing, helping to assist our community contribute to either utility scale solar or residential scale solar on their houses. These are all members, these utilities have members of their organizations on these action teams. And so while on the dashboard you see action champions highlighted there, the champions are not representative of the entirety of the group, right? There's a lot more people who are engaged within these action teams. They may be experts from the Colorado Energy Office. They may be our partners at the utilities themselves. And they are putting their heads together to take the lessons learned from the existing programs that they have and try to identify where is it that we can either expand those programs, those existing programs for support, or are there new programs that need to be developed in order to accomplish the energy efficiency in each residential unit or the renewable energy goals that might be had. So that's what is going on in those action team conversations, is identifying exactly what you just mentioned.
Thank you. One specific action is regarding the PACE program, which I think is focused on commercial, but property assessed clean energy. Are we marketing that? Or are we informing the public that that's out there as a financing tool? And I think there's a residential version of that as well. And then, of course, the city and entities like that provide a lot of incentives to put up solar panels. But can you speak to the PACE program in particular?
Yeah, the PACE program and the CPACE program are both highlighted on both our economic workforce development page, as well as within our internal energy link that is provided on our climate and sustainability page for the county, as far as providing those linking resources. And then when we go out into the community, whether it's at an Earth Day event or whether it's at one of these other face-to-face opportunities in the community, we highlight those programs for which the community is asking specifically about, so that we're meeting their needs at the moment that they're ready to accept that information and provide that to them.
Last question along this chain of thought. And is there a way to track that? In other words, if we're helping to outreach on those kinds of programs, is there a way to determine, well, this is how many businesses have used PACE, and a year from now we've increased the number of businesses using PACE?
We do have metrics that will track from the, is it the Treasurer's Office? I believe it's through the Treasurer's Office that we collect that specific information. But we do have other rebate programs, whether it's through Efficiency Works program or the CARE program that Fort Collins Utilities also partners with, that tracks these metrics with regard to the number of participants. Okay. Yes.
Thank you very much for answering my questions and being rather informed about these matters. Colleagues, do you have any, and of course, thank you. Colleagues, do you have anything else you'd like to ask or perhaps share?
Again, I'm just blown away. I think this dashboard is just extraordinary. I don't think we have anything like that I've seen in this region, let alone the state. So just outstanding work. And I will probably have more questions. I tend to get lost and drill down too much on when I'm visiting the website. So I need to sit down just sometime and I have a little list of questions at home. So I'll address that later with you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Commissioner, I might just ask the question of you, in future quarterly updates that I bring to you, would you prefer that I focus in on one of the focus areas and not be so robust in the reporting? Is there a way in which I can help to bring this information to you in a more digestible fashion?
You want to respond to that first? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that now we have the sort of overview and we know kind of what we're looking at. I think that would be nice to kind of focus in on one area and kind of really take a deeper dive into, whether it's built environment or, I'm trying to think of the other areas. Mm-hmm. Right. But yeah, I like that idea.
And perhaps one framework is, I think earlier you mentioned that there are 41 out of 100 that you've determined are actionable perhaps in the first year. That might be a good focus also. Commissioner, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Heidi, I think that's a great idea, because I do think I would like to drill down a little bit more than I have been on the website. But when you your comment about the 41 tactics, that just reminded me, I did have another question. you said that was far beyond what you had hoped to accomplish so far. Is that true? Is that what you said? So I'm curious, what did you think was your goal? Because I'm just curious about that. Because if we're already ahead, I mean, this is great news. But what did you think was going to happen? So
It, you know how when as you're raising children and you bring the opportunity for them to put things on their plate but then they need to clear their plate. There's a little bit of pacing yourself and being sure that the actions that you are going to take are not diminished or reduced because you're trying to do too much all at once. I was anticipating that the action teams would pick and choose the actions that they wanted to put most of their effort into. And they surprised me with their level of enthusiasm, with their level of commitment to wanting to attack as many actions as possible right out of the gate. I hope that they're right, and I also want to be mindful of the time that they're spending on these actions themselves, as most of our action team members have full-time jobs to meet their own full-time goals in their own plans. So luckily, many of these actions are linked together and are consistent with the goals that they have in their own organizations. And therefore, maybe it's not as heavy of a lift as I thought it was going to be to add on this additional collaboration and understanding how to amplify the work that's already being done.
thank you.
So before we adjourned, don't necessarily want to put Abby on the spot, but is there anything you'd like to share regarding eye care? And I mean, we've referenced it, but that's really an important component of our work. You're looking to your boss?
One of the things I will offer to you is that there will be an eye care update that is specific and dedicated to eye care so that you can hear what our departments are doing internally in July, in the month of July. So when you return from your summer breaks, you'll be able to hear a little bit more detail about what's happening internally.
Okay, I just thought I'd offer the opportunity. It looks like we've covered. You're done with your presentation?
I am. Thank you so much for your time today.
I think I'm going to suggest that we adjourn. It's 3:16 p.m. We are adjourned.